There's a beautiful tefillah, which is known to many of us, which starts with the words Ono, Bekoyach, Gedulas, Yemincha, Tatir, Tserura, a poem of 6 words per line and of 7 lines. 42 words all in all. And this tefillah goes back to the Middle Ages, to the times of the Chasidei Ashkenaz, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, and a very, very beautiful mystical meaning attached to it. And when we finished it, we say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusay La'olam Voed. One of the reasons we say, incidentally, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusay, is that the Chasidei Ashkenaz connected this tefillah to a very mystical and not well-known idea in the Gemara, which is mentioned in Kiddushin Daf Ayin Aleph, which speaks about a special name of God, a Shem Hashem, which was not known to many people. It was an esoteric way of referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which had 42 letters. Shem ben Arboy Mushtayim Osios. The Shem Hashem with 42 letters, which we know the Yud Kei Vav Kei has got 4 letters, and that's the maximum of that we know about. But there are other names that were used in earlier times to refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and one of them is a Shem ben Arboim Mishtayim Osios, the 42 letters, and because we have go through 7 psukim of 6 words each, and each word is supposed to be connected to one of the letters of the Shem Hashem, having said the Shem Hashem, we then say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso La'olam Voed. What has this got to do with our Parsha? So there is a very interesting connection to Parshas Masei, where we find at the beginning of Parshas Masei that the Pasuk tells us, Eile Masei b'nei Yisrael sheyotzu me'eretz Mitzrayim. Chapter 33 tells us about a list of all the travels that Klal Yisrael went through retrospectively throughout the 40 years in the Midbar, are now being recorded for us in the Torah. And Rashi asks the obvious question, Lama nichtavu? Why do we need to know this? It doesn't really add any halachas or any information or any Yiras Shamayim. What does it add? Just gives us a list of names we've never heard of before, we'll never hear of again. So what's the point of it? So Rashi's got his derech to explain that it means to tell us about Chazdei Hashem, that even when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings an onesh, it brings a punishment, he does it din barachamim. It's done gently, and they weren't like moving around for the whole 40 years. They had a certain limited amount of stations they went to, and even those 42, Rashi says, if you look at the Psukim, the first 14 were in the first year, the last 8 were in the 40th year, so in the middle 38 years, they only did 20 journeys, so this was Barachamim. That's Rashi's take following the Medrash. The Sforno follows a posuk in Yirmiyah Hanavi, Zacharti lo chesed ne'urayich, ahavas kalulo sayich lechtech achrei b'midbar, where the posuk HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael through Yirmiyah the prophet, says to him, I remember for Klal Yisrael the great credit of their early days, the ne'urayich, when Klal Yisrael were in their infancy, that they followed me loyally through the Midbar, Achrei b'Midbar be'eretz lo zorua, and that was the greatest act of emunah, and it was really, so we're being told about these 42 stations of traveling in order to emphasize the great levels of emunah of Klal Yisrael, emunah and bitachon. Okay, so these are the 2 perushim. The Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim has got another perush where he says that actually this was the greatest nace of all of the nisim in the Torah. The greatest nace was the miraculous survival of the Jewish people under impossible circumstances in the Midbar, and by telling us all the names of the places, that somehow adds greater credence to the story, which otherwise people might claim never happened, as we find throughout history, right? Whenever something great happens, later generations are deny its existence, deny it ever happened. So this is to somehow make the events of the Midbar more tangible. However, what I'm interested in is the writings of the Gedolei HaChasidus. I saw in the Degel Machne Ephraim, the grandson of Baal Shem Tov, he says in the name of his grandfather that the 42 stations along the way are actually 42 stations that every neshama of every man and woman has to go through. In life, we go through a journey from early childhood all the way through adulthood, Ad Mea V'Esrim, and every journey is tailor-made Hamechin mitzadei gova. HaKadosh Baruch Hu prepares our life, prepares our journey plan, and each stage it's a learning program. The whole 40 years of Klal Yisrael, the Midbar, was a learning curve, and in our life as well, we should have the mindset of seeing all our challenges as opportunities to learn, to get a deeper understanding of emunah, of bitachon, of ben odom lachaveiro, of chesed, a deeper understanding of Am Yisrael and Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Each stage along the way deepens our understanding of the crucial values of the Torah, and there are 42 stages to that. And these 42 stages are connected to the name of God of 42 letters. That these 42 letters in somehow describe for us the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes us by the hand and guides us through life. And that is the ultimate bitachon that we have. And that is the beauty of this particular tefillah of Honor B'Kach Gedulas Mincha. It's a statement of the fact that we understand that every single a moment of our lives, we are living Shavisi Hashem L'Negdi Samid. We're living in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and He's taking us Hu Yenahagenu Al Mus. He's taking us through every one of these stages, and this is really what's hidden behind this list of journeys of Klal Yisrael. The learning curve of Klal Yisrael is the learning curve of every one of us, and it's interesting that this same chapter 33 of Masei, it ends with the one and only place in the Torah where we're given a mitzvah's aseh, according to the Ramban, one of the Tariag mitzvahs of Yishuv Haaretz, that if one is able to go and settle in the land of Israel, that's a very special mitzvah to conquer and settle the land of Israel. And this is all part, having been through these 42 stations, this is the goal, started with Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it concludes by entering into the Eretz HaKadoshah, the holy land of Eretz Yisrael, and connecting with the Kedusha thereof. There's an interesting additional fact here in this pasuk, which says that the people who are living in Eretz Yisrael, we have to remove them from the land of Israel, otherwise we will not succeed in living there, because they are determined to kill you, and if you leave them there, and here's a very interesting phrase, if you leave them in the land and you think you can live together with them, they will be like nails driven into your eyes. What does it mean, sikim be'einechem? So the Ramban says something very amazing. He says, what does it mean it'll cause you to be blind? It doesn't necessarily mean a biological blindness. He says it means a blindness like we find the Torah a few times speaks about, ki hashochad ya'aver einei chachomim. That if a judge takes a bribe, he becomes blinded. Blinding the inability to see the obvious, right? And there is built into Eretz Yisrael, and our enemies in the land of Israel, they have the power to blind us to seeing the obvious. And there's so many people nowadays, people who were in charge 7th of October, who simply were blinded in ways that sometimes it's difficult for us to understand completely. They were blinded to the threat. The threat was obvious to anybody who was looking at it, and the observers and the people on the ground were shouting to them, look, there's going to be an impending disaster, and they were completely blind. They were blinded because they hadn't understood that if we don't take the step of proudly declaring that the land of Israel belongs to Am Yisrael, and that we are willing to live here and defend it totally and transform it from Eretz Canaan into Eretz Yisrael, we have to make that decision and make it totally. Fortunately, this week, a step was taken in that direction by a decision of the Knesset to lay the foundations of sovereignty in Yehuda and Shomron. And this is also another step in that direction, because if we don't do that, they will use whatever land they have as launching pads for future attacks against Klal Yisrael, Chas v'Shalom, and now we have come to see that with more clarity. And all this is in this week's parsha. Masei deals with the 42 journeys. It deals with the mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. It deals with the danger of being blinded by our enemies into thinking that they really want coexistence when they don't want coexistence. They want massacre. They want to get rid of Klal Yisrael. And all this is written here in Parshas Masei. And Bez Hashem, we should be able to hear and feel the beauty of this message and in some way increase our understanding of our connection to Eretz Yisrael v'chei b'yiros.